你都没来过新疆，你这个撒谎大王就别再挑拨离间了。
Hey Laowinners, it's Laowinner6 here with another video. And it's very rare that I'm simultaneously laughing at something and then simultaneously crying inside over something, because what I've just stumbled upon is truly horrifying, but it didn't start like that. For those of you that are not familiar with the whole Xinjiang situation, Xinjiang is the westernmost, biggest province in China. And the problem with Xinjiang is that the Chinese government doesn't like Xinjiang. Well, at least they don't like the people in Xinjiang, and that is because the majority of people within this province are not even Chinese. Well, the government wants you to think that they're Chinese and is doing everything in their power to make them Chinese, like setting up concentration camps where people are using forced sterilization to weed out a population, forced labor to profit off of the Uyghur minority within Xinjiang, getting rid of their language and religious beliefs, and doing everything they can to culturally genocide the entire populace so that the Chinese government can have ultimate control over the region. That is what you keep hearing about in the news, and that is something that keeps coming up with more and more stuff. And whenever more and more stuff comes out about this, it makes me more and more upset. I've spoken to Uyghurs about this issue. It is horrific. The surveillance state that Xinjiang is basically one of the most protected and one of the most sinister surveillance states in the entire world. What you're seeing coming out of Xinjiang is very little because people just can't get that much information out of it. However, the Chinese government's quickly realizing that they made a big error in what they're doing, because the Western world is starting to say, hey, this is actually genocide, because guess what? It's actually genocide in 2021. So for them to delete an entire culture and history and race of people, really, is what the Chinese government is doing. It's getting the attention of Western powers. And when Western powers start to label it as a genocide, like what Canada just did and what Mike Pompeo did before he left office, is starting to shift the way that the world's going to potentially deal with China. People don't look kindly on genocide, unfortunately, for the CCP. The thing is, instead of actually stopping the concentration camps and the Uyghur genocide, what the Chinese government decided to do was something even worse, and that is to force the Uyghur people to say on camera that everything is fine, that there is no concentration camps, there's no forced labor, there's no forced sterilizations. None of these atrocious things that Pompeo, in particular, by the way, they really don't like Pompeo for some reason. In particular, they really want the rest of the world to be able to see these videos, right? Now, before these videos came out, I actually came across a message that was leaked. And apparently this message was addressed to Chinese government officials within Xinjiang. And I'd like to read the translation of this for you. It says, institutions and organizations, in response to recent anti-China comments made by U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo, record short video clips. Choose a Uyghur employee with good Chinese or Mandarin language skills. Number 2, express a clear position on Pompeo's remarks. For example, I firmly oppose Pompeo's anti-Chinese remarks, and I am very angry about them. The country and Xinjiang. I am Chinese and I love my motherland. I am happy to work and life, etc. Number 3, institutions and organizations. Please forward this to the employees who will submit their videos. So what China did in response to all these allegations of genocide was go to the populace of people that they're subduing and controlling, the people that don't really want to be a part of China, force them to do these videos, and then upload them to YouTube, expecting the rest of the world to believe that a bunch of Uyghurs who are not allowed to move, no freedom of movement, no passport, they're not allowed to access the internet in terms of what even normal Chinese people can access. But when they can access the internet, they certainly can't go on YouTube. So they're using the government's using a VPN to upload these videos all over. They're en masse. There's hundreds, if not thousands of these videos all over YouTube right now, aimed at the West. And this is the first time, one of the first times I've seen like soft power propaganda so blatantly aimed at Westerners to try and misinform them about what's happening. And these are creepy. They started out kind of funny because I couldn't believe how poorly made these were. But at the end of the day, I realized that these are all victims behind the camera. And I have to show you guys what I found.
大家好，我叫安满古丽，作为一名生长在新疆的维吾尔族人，最近看新闻，我听到蓬佩奥说，新疆的维吾尔族群众被压迫、自由被限制， 等荒谬言论。我对此表示极度的愤慨和不满。我也通过自己的奋斗过上了富足而美好的生活。新疆这朵鲜花，它指的每一位生活在这片热土上的中华民族儿女，发自内心的呵护和热爱。
So with this video, you can see she's clearly reading from a script. In the way that she's pronouncing Chinese, the reason that I think the Chinese government thought these might work on people is because if you don't speak Chinese, you wouldn't understand that this is the cadence of the speech is incredibly forced, like someone reading from a script. And she's struggling with a lot of words. A lot of people don't understand that in Xinjiang, these people, this ethnic group that's wildly different, completely different from Chinese people, they have their own language, they have their own script, they have everything. They use the Arabic script and they speak Uyghur. And Uyghur is a Turkic dialect. Completely unrelated to Chinese, has nothing to do with Chinese. So the thing is here, when they're speaking Chinese, they're struggling with a lot of the words because they don't usually speak Chinese in their day-to-day life. So she's reading off a script, basically what we're supposed to believe is on her couch. To me, it looks more like a spa or a beauty salon, which we'll see in some of the other videos. But she's also wearing a shirt that says China, which I found hilariously forced. And the common thread over and over again that you're going to see is these people staring into the camera. They keep talking about how they saw the news and how they saw Pompeo said stuff. When in fact, all news for Xinjiang people, or particularly Chinese people in general, there's no news about what Pompeo said. There might be some Weibo stuff that people say and it gets blocked, or some private conversations, but your news is blocked. Most of the internet is blocked in China. So no Uyghur people are watching Pompeo's remarks, nor do they have an opinion about them necessarily. And if they do, it probably wouldn't be this.
1月19日，在任期最后一天的蓬佩奥仍然极力诋毁污蔑中国，临走前还给我们新疆扣上了2顶大帽子。
So yet again, we have another guy here, not looking to the camera this time, completely reading off the script, talking about how Pompeo's remarks are just absolutely ridiculous and misrepresent the situation in Xinjiang. Again, a very forced one, but we can move on to here and we start to see some threads here. Let's look at this young lady. She's supposed to be a university student.
最近在网上看到蓬佩奥对新疆的一些不实指责，我听到特别生气。作为一个当代大学生，我可以跟你讲，我从小就受到的是双语教育，从小学到高中都是免费的教育，到现在一直以来我都在学习自己的文化和语言。我可以很自信地说，我很骄傲，我是中国人，我们中国人很幸福。作为一个新疆人，作为一个当代大学生，我们新疆各族人民群众为了自己的美好生活努力奋斗着。
You can see in this one her stumbling across a lot of things. She's clearly reading from a script. She's clearly very nervous in this one. And she had to point out something that a lot of people have been pointing out, is that Xinjiang people are now less and less allowed to be able to study their own language or speak their own language, and they're trying to get rid of it in the schooling system so that they're only speaking Mandarin Chinese. They're trying to Sinify the entire region so that people are just Chinese, right? So she puts out a couple points here that I think would go over a lot of people's heads, is that we are proud to be Chinese, so insinuating that we're Chinese, and our Chinese people, us Chinese people, have a really happy life, which sounds like absolute propaganda drivel when you hear it in Chinese, but she makes sure to show that she has a Uyghur textbook, that we're allowed to study our own languages. And that's very, very forced and put on, because that's some of the allegations are that, well, I mean, to be honest, it's in China's official documents that they're trying to get rid of the Uyghur language. They've done this with multiple minorities all over China. But this is another common thread, is that she's received free education and she's living such a happy life. And she's very angry, most importantly, about Pompeo. She can't believe what he said. In order to combat some of the allegations that they're trying to get rid of the Uyghur language and that they're forced to speak Chinese, there's also some videos of Uyghur people in very forced environments speaking Uyghur instead of Chinese. And they had this common thread. I think they must have taken some like minor film class or something, but they get the people to like walk in front of the camera. They like they're walking towards the camera like it's supposed to be very, very organic, like a vlog or something. This guy's speaking Uyghur. Let's see what he says.
Pompeo, seninki tordan qalam bildirishlarni ko'rib men g'azablandim. Sen odam emas, hayvon kelsan. Sen bilmesden kalayımkan bildirlap Xinjiang halkının bayaşa turmuşa tesir göstermek bulutsa. Kayla bizden Xinjiang'da hiç kaçan mecbur emgek yok. Bizninki kişilerimiz naite bayaşa turmuşumuz naite yaşlı oldu. Biz Xinjiang'daki her millet halkı onların destek sıç uyuşup naite bayaşa yaşavatımız.
So this guy, he goes on to have very strong opinions about Pompeo, calls him a son of a bitch. And he's standing in this completely empty, weird-looking factory with a baker's hat on. I got really weird vibes about this. I don't speak Uyghur, but I can read the Chinese and the English at the bottom. And what the narrative is that basically I'm allowed to speak my own language. There's no forced labor. And there's always this point. It's like the way that the Chinese government does this, it's almost like it's like talking to a really dumb criminal or something. They always point out exactly what people are skeptical about, and that's actually what makes it worse. So this guy's like, we are not forced to, there's no forced labor here. And one thing I found funny was that I saved a picture a while ago, this very dystopian scene from a Uyghur restaurant in China, right? So in this Uyghur restaurant, these Uyghur people are eating here, and they're eating Uyghur food, they're hanging out with other Uyghur people. But on the wall, there's this propaganda thing, this big propaganda poster. You see all these kinds of propaganda posters all over China, and they're usually like, we are all Chinese, do not deviate from the mean, like only have 1 or 2 children, or don't believe in false rumors, only believe in the CCP, only believe in Xi Jinping, that kind of stuff. That's all over China. And this one here, this propaganda poster shows all these happy minorities. And these are the 56 minorities of China. And it says in Chinese, on top it says in Uyghur, but then the second thing it says in Chinese, the translation is, all the minorities must be held together like the seeds of a pomegranate, right? So it means like national unity, we're all Chinese, which sounds not very sinister until you actually have been to China and understand what that means. It means we must all be like the Han Chinese people, our masters and our leaders. We all must be slaves under the Han Chinese nation. And that really is what it is. And they use this analogy like we must be held together with like the seeds of a pomegranate. And I found that very interesting because when I was watching these channels, I was like, where have I heard that before? Because I had this picture and I was digging through my stuff, I was digging through my notes, and I was like, holy, this is literally a government propaganda. So we're made to believe that these channels are organic Uyghur people walking around talking about how their life is amazing in China because of the Chinese government, and all the Western media is a bunch of liars. And even though there's no transparent third-party media that's able to look into the concentration camps, even though China's banned everyone from even looking at them or even researching them or doing anything or talking to people, and banning all the Uyghur people from leaving, even despite all these things, we're supposed to believe that Uyghur people got a VPN, had the internet to shoot, edit, and film all of these pieces that are promoting the government while they're reading from a script with multiple cuts in very unbelievable situations. And it literally looks like a forced confession from a North Korean. And this guy literally says, almost verbatim, exactly the Chinese government's propaganda in this supposedly natural video. So I think you guys can understand the common thread that we're on here. Here's another university age girl. She's gonna go and say the exact same thing. She's received bilingual education, it's been free, the government's taking care of her. But this one I got some interesting vibes from.
我是开始是土生土长的维吾尔族姑娘。最近我在手机等平台上浏览了蓬佩奥发表的滑稽言论，我真的很想笑。我在新疆生活了20多年了，我怎么就没有发现我的人权被压迫或受到了限制呢？我说说我自己吧，我从幼儿园开始上的都是双语幼儿园，我一直享受优质的教育环境和教育政策。我在小学和初中、高中都没有交过1分钱学费，都是免费的义务教育，而且每一个高中生都是可以享受国家助学金的。现在我上到了我梦想中的大学，也是通过参加全国统一高考考上的，没有什么不公平之说。
So in this video, there's a couple things to note. Number one, she has to put out there that she's very pleased with her education, and that she wanted to laugh at Pompeo, even though she's very visibly nervous. This is not an organic dialogue. If you can speak Chinese, you'll understand this is very inorganic. She sounds very, very upset to be able to want to do this. Her voice is stuttery. Her cadence is completely wrong, and she's clearly reading and looking at a script. You can see from this angle, she's looking and reading from a script. And the problem with that is, I found this hilarious / scary. I think some of the people on the team here were looking at her saying like, well, she's got to read from the script, but it'll look too unnatural, right? If she's going to be reading it from behind the camera. This like face of the camera, like, we are very happy. This is happy land. This is so much fun. We don't need help from the outside world. Nothing to see here. That whole kind of vibe is off, right? You can tell through someone's eyes, but if you mask the eyes and you have them looking at another subject, trying to make it look like it's an organic conversation, it's a little more believable. So what we see here is her looking at a script. So what they do is they shift the camera and they use something called optical flow, which is something I use in Final Cut, which is my editing software. And they slow down a scene so that you can't really see what she's saying. They want it to be kind of blurry. Optical flow will kind of blur and make everything smooth, but you won't be able to see what she's saying, because they want people to believe that she's not looking at a script. So they cut away to a separate scene, which is all editing here. And she's looking and talking to another girl, but it's blurry, so you can't see that her voice doesn't match up to actually what she's saying there. This is a clever use of B-roll as a main shot when it's clearly not. So that's what they did to kind of get rid of any skepticism that she's reading from the script there. Another thing is, if you can see here, there's actually Chinese propaganda poster on the wall. And they've set up what it looks like to be in a courtyard of some sort in this building. A refrigerator and some sofas with a table. It looks completely out of place. I have no idea what's actually going on in this particular household, but another scene towards the end is she's supposed to be studying here. She's writing Chinese from her textbook into a notebook with a computer in front of her, and you can see there's a gaming headset and a webcam here. Now the webcam is actually used usually for being able to take pictures of someone's identity when they're using a public computer. This is not her computer. This is exactly the same kind of rig you would see either in an internet cafe or in a lot of situations in a hotel. And actually I have footage here. Winston and I were in a hotel. We're in many hotels where we saw this, but this is one that I had on hand. This is one where we're in a hotel in Hunan. Crappy, dingy hotel. Do you see on her wall here all the nicks and cuts and all that kind of stuff? This is just a garbage cheap hotel. And what they want you to believe is that she's sitting here at her organic home table and studying naturally as she would at this gaming rig. Now, I can show you the exact same footage here. This is in a completely different province, but they set up these really crappy computers here in the corner of a hotel room, and it's almost identical. You can see it's right next to the window, the curtains, same type of whole setup. And they removed her from wherever they were to make it more believable that she's studying in front of the computer that she has. And it's very forced, and without the knowledge of that, you'd kind of probably look at this and believe that. But I don't know, it's terrifying to see how she stutters on her words towards the end. She's clearly uncomfortable. Let's see another young guy.
今天我又在网上看到了蓬佩奥对新疆的错误言论。他说对维吾尔族等少数民族犯下反人类罪，这完全就是在胡说八道。新疆的经济发展取得了前所未有的成就，人民的生活也得到了明显的改善。宝贝儿，你幸福吗？
当然幸福啦。
蓬佩奥，你编织的弥天大谎只能印证你的险恶用心以及低劣的人品，等待你的将是历史公正的审判和清算。
So this one's hilarious in the beginning, because like they obviously tell him, he's like stopped, and they tell him to start walking up the stairs naturally. Then they have to cut, so he goes back down the stairs halfway through his sentence. But I got super creepy vibes because they always put their family picture there. They want to show, oh, look, they're allowed to have lots of people in their family. They're big. We're not separating families. Look at everyone's together. And then they're also bringing children into this. So he asks his daughter, as they cut away, by the way, with a fade, which is ridiculous, but they cut away with this fade. He asks his daughter, are you happy? And she goes, of course I'm happy. Like, dude, if you're gonna bullshit someone, if you're gonna lie and actually have people in concentration camps and be an evil psychopath, act like one, because they're usually pretty smart, aren't they? This is terrible. This quality is terrible, and it's super creepy that you're bringing children into this whole thing.
我叫叶立丹了，来自哈密市8中高2年级。蓬佩奥关于新疆少数民族种族灭绝的言论纯属扯淡。种族灭绝，我是从哪里来的？我不但活得好好的，而且还很幸福。蓬佩奥，你看，这是我的家，新兴的房子，而且现在校车接送，而且还不用掏学费。现在我们的家有3头牛、10几头羊，你还觉得我们不够幸福吗？
And again, like, dude, China, if you're gonna do this kind of stuff, make it a little more believable. Genocide, then where did I come from? That's the line you decided to feed this high schooler? Seriously? Genocide, then where do I come from? That's like these people that I've seen on YouTube saying, like, China's dealing with a food shortage right now. It doesn't mean that everyone in China is hungry. It means that the future food supplies, their ability to make their own food or grow their own food is limited because they rely on a lot of imports. You'll see these Western YouTubers walk around China and they'll go, food shortage? Look at this market. There's vegetables here. Look at this restaurant. Where's the food shortage? That's the level of intellect that China expects you to believe as a Western, actually, as anyone on YouTube watching this kind of stuff. That's the level of intellect that you're expected to have. I mean, look at this dude. If this is the dude's house, which I doubt it is, but I mean, there's fake grass put up on the side of the house. They're telling him to brag about his cows and his sheep, and that he goes to school by car, which they don't show. And he's, again, another comment thread is that, oh, we go to school for free. Look at how good my life is. It's creepy as hell that they're getting high schoolers involved in this as well. And it just makes me incredibly uncomfortable. But not as uncomfortable as the next one.
我是昌吉州实验小学4年级3班维吾尔族学生布尼亚加拉利丁。今天我要拆穿撒谎大王蓬佩奥的谎言。这是我的同班同学，也是我的好朋友杨礼光。我俩从幼儿园起就在同一个班，住在同一个社区，每天一起上学，放学结伴回家。去年夏天，我不小心把脚摔伤了，是杨礼光帮我背书包，课间扶我去上卫生间。这段经历让我们之间的友谊更加深厚了。我们都喜欢打篮球，也都同时报名参加了学校的书法兴趣班。我们维吾尔族有一句谚语：事成于和睦，利生于团结。看，这是我俩的书法作品。放假有一段时间了，我和杨礼光不约而同都来到学校给班里的花浇水。
这可是每位同学亲手种的花，我可得把它们照顾好。
浇完花后，我们又一起堆了雪人。瞧，这是明年冬奥运会吉祥物冰墩墩
和雪融融。
蓬佩奥，你都没来过新疆。你这个撒谎大王，就别再挑拨离间了，请不要胡说八道，颠倒是非。
Holy shit. This one is like, dude, the levels they've stooped to get these children involved. This is the most scripted crap you've ever seen in your life, and it's terrifying. Tell me this doesn't look like one of Kim Jong-un's performances where children are like happily like holding the cards in front of him to make his fat ass smile. Now here's the deal. We have this kid with this completely fabricated story. They got him paired up with a Han Chinese kid, of course. They're best friends. He broke his leg and his friend helped him through all these times, and that's what brought them close together. And of course, this kid has a very strong opinion about Pompeo, who he's never heard about. This kid has no idea what Pompeo is. Coming up with all this bullshit, like he goes to calligraphy class. He's standing in a room where there's no other children in the class. They're like, look at my calligraphy class. There's no one else here. It's just us in this echoey ass room. We have to go to our school to water these plants that are class raised together. Look at how harmonious and amazing we are. Look at our relationship. Me, I'm a Uyghur person, and this is my Han Chinese friend. We lived happily ever after. This is effed up on so many levels. The thing is, there's hundreds and hundreds of these videos, and they're all very, very disturbing. They all make me incredibly upset because of what I'm seeing happening here. They got an initiative, and this is just like anything in China, whether they're banning motorcycles or they're clean the streets initiative or we're gonna get rid of stray animals. They'll do everything like crazy at once. So when they said like we need to get rid of stray animals, they got rid of and killed all these dogs and burned them and beat them in public and burned the cats and took away people's pets that were unregistered and beat them in the streets and drowned them. When the government sends out an initiative, everything has to be done or else your head is on the line. That's how Communist China works. So they have these massive initiatives that are the government's bidding. So in this case, the WeChat message went out to these officials in Xinjiang, in the province of Xinjiang, and they go, listen, we need to go have you film all these things because the Western people, if this gets traction, right, Western governments are going to start actually maybe tariffing, boycotting China, boycotting the Beijing Olympics, all of these things that we really need or want to happen, all of these, these institutions that we've infiltrated, all of these cooperations that we've made with Western governments around the world, this could all be threatened if this Xinjiang thing isn't under control. So what we're going to do is go out there and film a bunch of Uyghur people. Make it look like they're totally fine. Maybe even go to the camps and set up some scenarios to make it look like they're living a happy life. And it's just the typical way of the Chinese government dealing with stuff is so unbelievable and so half-assed the way that they do things. So you're seeing this. There's a ton of these channels coming out, and it's terrifying how many people are getting involved with this because this is all forced. This is all bullshit. No one's uploading these videos on their own volition. This is all Chinese government propaganda. Whether it's fooling people or not, it's a different story, but I had to say something about it because this is like one of the first times I'm seeing this happen within Western media platforms at such a scale for such a specific issue. I mean, one of these channels is entirely dedicated to slandering Pompeo. Like, that's how focused this has gotten. So, I mean, I can cover more of this stuff. There's a lot more terrifying aspects to get into in these videos. There's hundreds and hundreds of these, so I might do another one in the future. But my question, though, is like, how are these Uyghur people getting Pompeo's message? How are they getting all these things that they're so offended about? How are they getting uploaded to YouTube? Who's managing these channels? And why is every single video scripted and completely unnatural? I mean, I could pick apart all of these, and if they're removed, it doesn't matter. We've all downloaded these, so it's horrifying. My heart goes out to the people in Xinjiang that have to deal with this kind of horrific stuff going on. And the more that we find out about what's happening in Xinjiang, the more it should be very abundantly clear that we should not be dealing with the Chinese Communist Party in the modern age. I don't know how we're letting a country get away with genocide in 2021. It's something that we can't justify. It's something that we, in this modern age, if you're a person that lives in a free country, you have to start speaking out about this. You have to start talking to people about this because spreading awareness is the only way we're going to get more eyes on this situation. It's appalling. No human being should have to go through this. Thank you to all the people that support me on patreon.com/Lao86. I talk to you guys every single day there. I answer my messages every single day. And I appreciate the community that we've created. If you want to support my work there, that's pretty much the only way to do it because there's not many sponsorships that are reaching out to me anymore because of my position on the Communist Party of China. They're too afraid to tarnish their brand. They still want to have ties with the Chinese Communist Party for some reason. Anyway, so thanks to all the people out there. I want to say thank you so much, Laowinners, and I'll catch you on the next one.